The National Veterans Memorial and Museum began with a vision from the late Senator John Glenn, who understood the value of telling and sharing the story of our veterans. From the initial view, the architecture impresses upon visitors the importance of what lies within. Seeming to rise organically from the earth, the building itself is a symbol of our nation's veterans and their resilient spirit and unending commitment to making this country stronger. Once inside the museum, visitors embark on a narrative journey, following exhibitions that focus on the servicemen and women and their families. Individual stories and shared experiences are illustrated through personal artifacts, quotes, letters, photographs, and powerful films of veterans telling their unique story in their own words. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum. It's more than a museum. It's the new home of the brave. Plan your visit today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining our latest virtual rally point at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. My name is Colonel Retired Bill Butler, Chief of Staff, and on behalf of our President and CEO, Lieutenant General Retired Mike Farrader, welcome as we bring you a very timely conversation given the recent events in Afghanistan and as we approach the 20th anniversary of Al-Qaeda's attack on the United States on September 11th, 2001. This morning, we'll be talking about 9/11 and an amazing, soon-to-be-released book about some brave men and women who served our country during the 20-year war, also commonly referred to as the Global War on Terror, or the GWOT. 71 combat veterans share their stories of service and sacrifice for our country. For a generation of Americans and many people around the world, the defining moment for them were the terrorist attacks at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Certain images, like the falling man or President Bush at Ground Zero consoling our nation, or the phrase, "let's roll," uttered by Todd Beamer on United Airlines Flight 93 before the passengers fought the hijackers, instantaneously bring us back to that fateful day. Joining us today are three great guests. Dan Blakely, combat veteran of 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and co-author of The 20-Year War. Tom Amenta, combat veteran of 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and co-author of The 20-Year War, and Beau Simmons, childhood friend of Dan Blakely, professional photographer, and co-author of The 20-Year War. So now, without any further ado, General Farrader, we got a great discussion. Over to you to facilitate it.
Thanks, Bill, and welcome everybody, and gentlemen, welcome to our virtual rally point. Now, this rally point will be aired beginning on the 4th of September and run straight to the 9/11 date, the date that you'll be in the museum with us and the date that you'll be premiering and doing a book signing. And so the timing is great. The topic is perfect, and it's one that is dominating across our nation and even across the world right now. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, or your timing is impeccable, that you are thoughtful enough long before today to capture the insights, the experiences, and the hearts of veterans that served in Afghanistan. And so on behalf of all of those men and women, their families, and everyone who supported them and supported you in this project, thank you and congratulations. So Dan and Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself. Dan, we'll start with you. Talk about being an Army Ranger, where you were on 9/11, and what your tours of service were like.
Sure. Thank you, sir, for having us. 9/11 was a crazy time, I think, for a lot of people. I was young at the time. I think I was 12 years old. And I just happened to be home for the day. I was homesick, and my dad was serving in the Air Force at Offutt Air Force Base, which, if anybody knows, that's where the President Bush ended up landing his first destination once he got the call that the Twin Towers were attacked. So I witnessed all the chaos that came with that. All the troops that got sent out into the neighborhoods, on post, off post, just to secure the area. And I knew right then that this was something serious. I knew that this was not a drill. It was not an accident. I witnessed all of the images that people saw on TV live. And my parents couldn't get home to me, so it was one of my neighbors that actually brought me over to be with them for the day. And it was just chaos. And those images are ingrained in my brain. I can never forget them. And it was only years later where I graduated a year early from school, decided to sign up and serve with 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and was there for 6 years, had 3 tours to Iraq and then 3 tours to Afghanistan, left as a squad leader and a master breacher. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. And I can only, thank the people that I served with and the incredible, giants that I get to tell stories about and get to share with the world about, all the adventures and things we got to do, and why it was so important for us to be in both Iraq and in Afghanistan, and why my service mattered at the time. And I think that's the story that people need to hear more often now than ever, is why everybody's service has mattered over the last 20 years.
That's excellent. Thanks a lot for that. And then Tom, if you would go and tell us about your journey as well.
So I enlisted in 1999, dating myself a little bit here. And as a side note, sir, it's always a pleasure to be in your company, and thank you also for being a participant in the book, in addition to having us today.
Thanks.
But I enlisted because I was the oldest of 4 kids. I wasn't ready to go to college, and my great uncle, who had been in Vietnam, I asked him, I said, "Uncle Ralph, what should I do?" He goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" "I want to jump out of airplanes. I want to shoot automatic weapons. I want to blow stuff up." It's like, "Tommy, go be a Ranger." And so I enlisted on a option 40 contract. And so in one of the sort of interesting, I would say, sort of nuances, at least for me, is that I was in Germany with 2nd Ranger Battalion. We were on Operation Centurion Crusader at the time. So we were also getting ready to go out into the box with Colonel Butler's old outfit. And we were not happy about it because we were zeroing miles gear as members of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. And we always felt like, where's our sim rounds, right? Like we train like you fight, you don't play laser tag. But that was the concession, and I was the RTO. So instead of using the way that we normally did, we had to have a totally separate set of frequencies and encryption and everything. And we're just not happy because we were in Bravo Company, and ACO and CECO were going to get to go spend 3 days running around Europe wherever they could get in that 72 hours. And so we're just all salty. We're all like, screw these guys. And then suddenly, I'll never forget, one of my fellow RTOs, Mike Smith, looks at me and goes, "Hey, did you hear about New York?" "No, man, what's up?" And he's like, "Yeah, someone like flew a plane into the World Trade Center or something. Like, something like crazy happened." It's like, so I go into the talk, the operations center, and everybody is just huddled around this tiny little transistor radio. We didn't have a CNN uplink for the base at the time, and we were already going out. Like, everything else gets shut down on base. Everything, these guys are completely locked down, but they're like, "You guys are going to go train anyway." So we spent the week out in the box training, and I didn't see the towers fall until a week later. And that was so jarring because it was like 6 a.m. We just gotten done with the final op at night, come back in, cleaned our gear. We're all tired. We're all just, camo still streaking our faces. And so we get in the chow hall, and they reestablish that link. And the problem for us was, and why it was so shocking, was that everyone else in the world, for the most part, had seen it. So they were desensitized to that image. But so they're playing it over and over and over again. And you've got, my platoon, these 40-something guys, and we're just watching this, and you can feel the rage in the room. Like, we knew intellectually what had happened, right? Like, but there's something about the picture, and then you just keep seeing it over and over and over again, and you haven't had a chance to process it. Like, it was just pure Ranger rage. And then there was about a 48-hour period where we really thought that we were going to stay in Germany and go immediately. We're like, the go to war palace just down the block. We've already got the C-17s that are supposed to fly us home. Forget that, man. Like, let's go to Oman, right? Mail us the DCUs and like, let's get this on. That didn't happen. Third Bat jumped into Rhino, but that was there. So for me, they finally put us in the chute, and we got to Afghanistan. I got to be one of the first guys to step off of a plane for 2nd Ranger Battalion to go to war since Panama. In 2002, it was March, and we're just trying to establish everything that we could. I went back in 2004, at that time as a member of the staff, which was interesting because I got to see sort of it from a much higher level, battle tracking and doing personal security stuff. It was a crazy experience for sure.
And then, Beau, we'll see some of your amazing photos here in a little bit, but tell us about growing up with Dan as your middle school Ranger buddy.
Oh, man. Dan and I obviously go way back to when I was 5 and he was 6 years old, growing up next to each other. And, he left the Army a little early during high school when I was still in. And I've always, looked up to veterans myself. And so seeing my dear friend go away and then knowing that he was going to deploy was pretty tough, not knowing what's going to happen to possibly him. But just being so proud of all the accomplishments that he was able to make in his military career, and then to go forward and, to work on this book, The 20-Year War, together. And with Tom, it's just been incredible. And I can't thank you and Bill and the rest of the staff for the hospitality on not only having us on here, but for being part of the book and inviting me to the museum to take your guys' photo. So thank you again.
Credit goes to you for sure. And our staff that helps put these together are fantastic, and credit goes to them as well. So, we consider that the National Veterans Memorial Museum, the NVMM, we're really a family of veterans and for veterans, and the veterans we reach out to daily are a part of this larger family, just like you guys are. So let's talk about 9/11 a bit more. After you kind of process what had happened, then how did that affect you and your families? And if you go 5 years, 6 years into the future, 2017, 2018, then what are you thinking? Or 2012, let's say, what are you thinking about what just happened?
I know for me, I served from 2006 to 2012. So that was really during, I guess, the height of both wars and during the surge years. And so I really saw the uptick of the war. And then I also saw the back end when it seemed like we were starting to have a transition. We were handing things back over to the Afghan government. We were more in a advise and assist role. We had Afghan commandos attached to us, and really they were taking charge. So really, when I left in 2012, I truly thought, this was going to be winding down soon. That these wars were coming to an end. And it's been striking to me to see how much longer, we've stayed committed to the region. And I know we're going to talk about it in here shortly, but to see it finally come to an end is just, I'm kind of speechless with words of thinking back to when I had my mindset of, 2011, 2012, this was going to end. This was almost it. Just to see it finally end is just crazy.
Wow. And then Tom.
Yeah, my family didn't want me to enlist to start off with. They were pretty against it, outside of my great uncle and my grandfather, who was his brother. And what was amazing is that they had all kind of come around to, okay, well, he's doing this, he made it in the Ranger Regiment. And I graduated Ranger School in July of 2001. So they were finally like, okay, he's doing this, like he's being successful. It's like, he rides it out for a couple more years and, he'll go to school. And then 9/11 happened. They just freaked out, rightfully so. Like, that's, they know where the sun's going, and there was no mystery about that. And then, especially back then, you couldn't really let everyone know you were going on a trip, but they started piecing it together. and no one really talked about it. And so for me, especially because the war was so clear in 2002, 2004, we knew exactly who we were going after. We knew exactly why we were going to do it in Afghanistan. And can this guy please come out from behind a rock so we can shoot him? Right. I mean, that was the mission, and we were looking for him. But, for me, what it means later, the one thing that just has blown my mind as I've watched the wind down is one of the people that was on our high value target list, our HVT list, at, very near the top was Heckmater. And when Ghani is the president, Boogie, a couple of weeks ago, and there's the representative of the Afghan government, suddenly there's Gubernator Heckmater, and I'm just like, man, I was looking for you forever. And I think that speaks to a lot of I don't know, we will talk about it, the complexities of Afghanistan as a region and some of the challenges that we had there. Because, I was with Dan when he left active service, and we first met, we were both instructors in the National Guard. And as teaching OCS, and before that I had taught combat tactics and infantry skills in Indiana's National Guard. So through the surge, where these guys would leave my course for 2.5 weeks, and 36 hours later they're going to Iraq. I mean, they're in Kuwait getting ready to cross 36 hours later. So for me, just to see that had started winding down, and we were no longer how we cram 8 weeks of training into 2.5 weeks and then immediately expect someone to perform. I felt the same way. I'm like, especially after UBL, they got him. It was like, okay, great. And then it just kept going.
Yes. So this is much about, sort of humanity. And as you said, you entered in 99, and, I left the Ranger Regiment about that time. And those NCOs were saying, these are the worst privates we've ever seen. And so, and every group of sergeants and staff sergeants really do believe, but that they're weaker and they're lazy or they're this and that. And I don't think so. And I think that's one of the strong suits of your book, because I think the largest transformation, and every year in the Pentagon, there's big discussions about who gets what money, and transforming weapon systems and commo systems and cyber systems. The biggest transformation always has taken the U.S. American high schooler, and I got a breacher on the door behind me if you can see him.
Yeah.
And then, you take a high schooler, and a year later, 14 months later, he's graduating from U.S. Army Ranger School, and the credit goes to those sergeants who bring them along and make them in their image, and our values are imprinted upon them. And then we send them off to Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever, and we have almost a 99.9% success rate in acting with character and integrity. So let's draw that out a little bit, because obviously you weren't the last soft Ranger class, and neither was the one behind you. But tell me, as you and Beau, I'm really interested, as you got to meet folks from all over the country that weren't necessarily your high school best friend. Let's all three just give the insights on the human dimension of what the book breaks out for us.
Yeah, so these 71 stories, or 71 veterans that are included in this book, are from all branches of the U.S. military. They dive into a little bit of their background story and their military career, a little bit about their deployments, but more importantly, their transition and where their lives have taken them since. So we like to talk about the successes that each veteran has had, or how they want to motivate other veterans to have a smooth transition.
And what did you find remarkable when you started the project, and as you went through it? What were the things that you found? Wow, didn't expect that today.
That not every single veteran's story was not going to somewhat be alike from the other. I went into this obviously as a civilian, so my knowledge was very slim coming into this. And so when I was interviewing these veterans, I just realized that everybody's story was so different, and they're human beings, and they're men and women just like you and I. And I guess I just thought that, somewhere along the line, 71, I'm going to run into an issue of their story being the same, and they just weren't. And it blows me away.
Yeah, good. Same question, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, to really, further what Beau is saying, even myself, I serve with some of these people that are in the book, and I know a lot of the people that are in the book, and I know several people in the book who served together who you would think have a very similar mindset or have a very similar story and things like that. But truly, 71 unique stories is incredible to really capture the military mindset. But the bigger thing for me was that even though they have different stories, the thread that ties them all together is so strong. That brotherhood and sisterhood of, wearing the uniform and what it meant to them to serve and what it means to them to continue to serve now that they've taken their uniform off. And I think it's such a powerful thing that I really hope that people, who digest these stories and see the faces of the individuals realize like, wow, this person, this portrait I'm looking at looks like just any other person that I thought, I'd walk across on the street. But they have such a crazy, powerful story that I can learn a lot from. And I hope that's what people get from it is just, our men and women that have served did it for a really just cause and had a reason behind it, but they didn't stop after they took off the uniform, and they're continuing to serve their communities and their businesses and their families and everybody else around them. And it's just a powerful thing to read.
I think let me make a quick comment on that, and I sure appreciate you saying that. At the National Veterans Memorial Museum, we have 14 thematic alcoves, and the first one is A Nation Called, and the next one is why I served, and the next one is leaving home, and then oath of office, and then basic training. And what I'm hearing you say is exactly just how unique yet still inspiring and amazing all 71 stories are. But you probably could walk them along that theme that they were called for a reason, and they did have a reason. Everything from dad was a Marine, and if I didn't go Marines, or dad was a Ranger, if I didn't go Ranger, I could never man up in my home, right? And at the same time, Tom, I just asked you to talk about the quality of the people. So many are so wicked smart, amazing senses of humor, problem solvers, innovators, and creative folks. That's what always motivates me to be around soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guard, everybody. But really, the youth, if you unleash them, then what you're going to see them accomplish is beyond you could ever guess. Go ahead.
Well, not just that, sir, but especially one of the things I was so drawn to this project when Dan was first explaining it to me is when the story finishes, it's what are they doing now? And to see that this call to service to continue to make America the greatest nation in the world is still very, very important to these men and women. And so, how they served, how they transitioned, and where they ended up now, those stories are all very, very different, and they're all really they're all unique, and they're all at least for me especially, just inspiring to see how someone started in the middle of nowhere for the United States and ended up with this really long profound career. We have other people that went in as officers, and now they've got an MBA from one of the most prestigious business schools in the world, working for one of the most prestigious companies in the world. But it's like, to your point, the thread that really comes through, and I'm so proud of this project because it really does, both in the portrait of these individuals that Beau took, but in their stories, fight back against this. If you're a veteran, you're a robot. If you're a veteran, you just, or if you're in the military, you just take orders. It's like, it still blows my mind that people have not understood that basic training and its specificity and drill and ceremony are designed to create a bedrock. But after that, that's the bedrock and the foundation you adapt from. They see basic and they think, oh, they're a robot. And they totally miss, the maxim of no plan ever survives the first 30 seconds of contact.
Right.
You guys think we do after the first 30 seconds, right? Like it's adapt, it's overcome. And just to see the power of that, and really to see that spirit of ingenuity and entrepreneurship for what these veterans are doing now. There are so many small business owners in the book, and there are so many people doing incredible things in their other organizations, and pushing the envelope and working with nonprofits as well, and in their own way, working to try and make this group of veterans the second greatest generation.
Yeah. So answer this question. If if you were kind of just doing a distribution, men, women, all races, all services, how would you describe what are the chances of someone opening the book and essentially seeing themselves?
100%. I think, General Vattel did an excellent job in the foreword, and one of the last things he says at the end of the book is, no matter where you end up in this book, you are going to find a story that you can connect to. You're going to find an individual that you can see yourself in them, and you can find a path to success if you're a veteran, or you can connect with a story if you're a civilian and understand more of that veteran experience, and why especially the transition is so important, and why especially civilians and veterans should look at other fellow veterans for inspiration, and to see that, it again didn't stop when you took off the uniform. It continues, and we can continue to be an inspiration for all.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Dan. Tom, anything you want to add to that theme?
No, Dan covered beautifully.
Okay. So as without a doubt, you got breacher number 2 at the door now.
Dan, you got to help him out with the technique there, Mr. Master Breacher. Come on.
That is too cool.
He's got a lower the shoulder.
He goes by Mad Dog, so we got that going for us. For those that served in the first half of the war, why was their service? Why did it matter? For those that served in these last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, why did it matter? Tom, you go first this time, and then Beau, I'd like you to respond also. Why does it matter?
It matters. I don't care when you served over the past 20 years. It matters because you kept America safe. It's one of those things that any doubt that people want to have about that, and anything that people want to try and push back against that, it's a tragedy and it breaks my heart. But look at what just happened when 13 Marines, sailors, and naval corpsmen just lost their lives. Like the minute that there was a little bit of air for that fire, it went boom. In the past 20 years, because especially as this was ending, I had a lot of feelings, and I ended up getting featured in a Washington Post article, and I was asking, like, why did my friends die? Like, I was really frustrated. I was really angry. And a friend of mine who's a writer, Claire, was like, Tom, in the past 20 years, I've gotten married. I've had my children. My father got to watch his grandson grow up. And whether you see it now and you and your fellow veterans do or don't, that happened because you were there to make sure another 9/11 didn't happen, and it hasn't happened since you've done that. And I think that if there's one thing I would say is that is so important to remember, especially now, especially in this moment in time where, what is going to turn into an absolutely iconic image is Major General Donahoe being the last person out, right? And just even through the night vision, he's just got that worn out look on his face with his nods flipped up, where it's like, I am getting any vet who's ever gotten on the back of a C-17 after a mission knows that look, right? And this is where it gets quiet. I Dan and General Ferreter and Colonel Butler, I know you understand that, where it's like you don't start thinking about it until afterwards. And I think a lot of us as veterans are thinking about it in the afterwards of what did this all mean. God bless those troops, and I hope that their chains of command, now that they've gotten back. I was communicating actually with one gentleman that was there earlier this morning. Have the care to check on their guys and their girls and their men and women and just keep it going. But specific to the veteran experience, I don't see a difference because we served to make America safe, and we did our job.
Yeah.
Forget the politics. Forget anything. Like, we did our job, and that is black and white and clear as crystal.
Excellent. And Beau, same to you.
I'll keep my answer short because I think Tom really nailed it. But, I think you guys see it from one side of the spectrum, and I see it as a civilian, as I've always looked at our active service members and veterans as personally my heroes. These are men and women that are fighting demons at night while I sleep well. And I just think that there's no difference in if you've served the first half or if you've served, as of the past few years. I think that you're contributing to protecting our country. You're contributing to helping others and our allied forces. And like Tom said, it's a shame to see what has happened recently in the recent events. but I don't think it was all pointless that our men and women were over there. And I just can't thank enough for our veterans and active service members.
Thanks, Beau. A second ago, we threw up the link to the health crisis line at the VA. So if you're out there, somebody, and you have concerns, reach out to somebody. Go find that link. We'll put it up again. There we go. And let someone know. You just need to talk things out. You know, the best part of being in any range platoon or being allowed to sit with a range platoon when you're a captain to 3-star is just the jive talk that's occurring, and or ride on a cattle car over to McCord and don't let anyone know you're on it, and you'll hear everything that you ever wanted to hear. But that's because you're used to talking it out. So as we look at this, then I would ask everyone, call a veteran that you know and talk it out. Go have a beer, get some chow, and talk it out. And then as you looked and met with everyone, what kind of healthy activities did you find was a part of their transition?
You know, most of these men and women have, you know, the reason why I wanted to capture them so raw and authentically is I didn't want to just set up a studio with lighting and professionals and photograph them all on the same stage. Mm-hmm. So seeing each veteran in their own capacity of, you know, skiing or hunting or on a motorcycle or fixing a car, like each veteran had their own unique, you know, like just things that they like to do for fun, their hobbies. And I want to capture them as real as possible in their own natural environment.
Yeah, it's too easy to get into a bad spiral where, you know, your best friend's Jack and his friend's Glock and all that kind of stuff. So again, for the veterans out there, we exist, the NBMM, we exist to impact lives and to help. And your buddies will not let you down. So reach out to someone if you're by yourself, or just go have a blast. You're always at your best when you're running with your hair on fire and playing a good sport or shooting and having fun there. As you get ready to launch, and if you were sitting in this virtual 29,000 people going to see you, or in the Great Hall of the NVMM, what would you say is your takeaway, or what you wanted them when they get the books in their hands to take away from the body of work that you've done?
I think, you know, we touched on it briefly, but just how unique all of our service members are, but how powerful they can be. And, you know, when you look at these portraits, especially, and you look at the incredible photography that Beau has, you know, laid out there for you to really get a perspective of each individual in this, is, you know, you say a picture, you know, you can, picture tells you 1,000 words, or, you know, has a lot of stories. But when you look into the eyes of each of these veterans, or look at the silhouette of each of these veterans, you really get a perspective of who they are now. And it's really easy to lose that when you're wearing a uniform and you're in formation with everybody else. But the second you take that off, you can really see who the individual is. And I think people are going to realize that these veterans who have done so much for their country and have done incredible things and are continuing to do incredible things look just like your neighbor next door. They probably are your neighbor next door. You probably didn't know. And then for the veterans who are walking through or flipping through the pages and seeing these faces and reading the stories, I just want them to know that it is important for you to reflect on your past, and it is important for you to tell your story. It is important for you to tell your family the things that you've done and your friends, and just make sure that it comes from a human level, from a human perspective. And I think that's such an important piece of storytelling that a lot of veterans struggle with.
Do you think if we could get this in the hands of every DHR in America, that they would understand so much more why we hire vets? Tom, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, 100% on that one, sir. I think that the thing that's missing, I think right now in the veteran conversation, is the humanity of the veteran. And that's impossible to miss in this book. If you take a look at it, if you read these stories and you see these pictures, these portraits that Beau took, if you can't see the humanity in these people, and you can't see how similar We all are. When we got together and wrote the afterword, for the longest time, I don't remember exactly what we landed on for the verbiage, but it was, hopefully by now you're seeing how frustratingly annoying or how frustratingly normal we are. Because at the end of the day, as hard of a job as it is, and as much of an honor as it is to sign an enlistment contract or sign a commission into the military, it's still a job, right? If you want to be a lawyer in L1 your first year, you go over an enlistment contract because it's arguably the most bulletproof contract in American law. Like, it is very clear what you can and can't do. And so at some point, if you do a job, you're going to do another job later, right? Whether someone goes all the way through a long and distinguished career like you and Colonel Butler did, sir, or whether you just decide that you're going to do a single enlistment like Dan and I did. And that transition's hard. And there is certainly a disconnect between the American population at large. And I would also say the active duty / veteran community. I don't think that we are fully divorced from some issues there. But they're humans. They're people. We just happen to want to do this specific job for our own. Again, 71 people with 71 different reasons. And then we move on. And I do think that if you're an HR rep, if you're someone who's trying to understand the veteran experience, the photography in these veterans' own words, like, this is written in the first person for a reason. Because when we wrote the stories, we started from audio files of their exact words and tried to keep as absolutely as close as we could. It was way less an exercise in sort of creative or technical writing, and so much more of just making sure that you could condense down thoughts into clear ideals, because someone's reading it rather than having a conversation. But yeah, there's so much humanity. There's so much commonality in their stories that, like Dan said, and like General Votel said, that is relatable to everyone, not just veterans, but the average American as well.
Yeah, that's sort of why when we were growing up, there was always a guy who had served in a previous conflict that we all looked up to, whether it was Uncle Joe or Mr. Smith or Coach Smith. And you say, that guy's got 4 combat tours from, Vietnam, or that guy was on Pork Chop Hill in Korea. Or, the guy's only got 6 jumps, but 5 of them were into combat, or World War II guys, right? Well, I think your 71 veterans represent that person that every kid in every neighborhood can find and find as a role model and a mentor. As we conclude, let me be shameless and say we get no federal money, and so we'd like you to support us, and you can join as a member to the National Veterans Memorial Museum. Your contributions as a member or as a sponsor or donor allow us to bring the great men and women such as Dan and Beau with us today, and I just think it's awesome to have you here. So as we close up, do me a favor and give me your parting shot for what you want everyone to know about this book.
I'll start and just say, I want anybody who picks up this book to feel that human connection with every veteran that's in there, to feel a certain level of inspiration of why each of these men and women serve, and just to understand the perspective of a veteran and how important they are to our society, especially as we move out of this 20-year war, and as we reshape what the United States is going to be, post this major conflict. And even if it's not you that pick up the book and flip through it and read through it, I guarantee you know somebody who needs to see it and who needs to read it. And hopefully you can, give it to them or give them the inspiration like the stories in this book will for everybody else.
Thanks. And Tom, I left you off for a second there, but go ahead and again, Beau, if you'll go next and just your parting shots for this show today.
Sure. I mean, personally, I just, as a civilian, I want to help change the conversation between civilians and veterans alike. And I think that there's been a huge misconnection with a lot of it. And me personally, I've learned a lot about, creating this book. And I just hope that it inspires people to want to help veterans even more. Maybe it helps corporate companies that want to help, hire more veterans or help them be part of their staff. And I hope that when they go through and they look at the faces of these portraits and they read the stories written by Tom, that they, just like Dan said earlier, they see themselves in each one of these stories.
Very awesome. Thanks, Beau. And Tom, go ahead and wrap us up.
Well, one of the things that I've heard a lot this week, as things are winding down in Afghanistan, and this really has sort of become truly a 20-year war, is the magic is caring. And what I hope people who pick up the book and flip through it and read these stories and see these beautiful portraits is they understand how much everyone in this book cares about America and cares about them. And that's reflective in their service. We live in this crazy time where we've never had more information available to us, but I feel like we've never maybe been more fractured as a nation, except for post-Civil War reconstruction. Like, it really is very fragmented. It really is, just not a cohesive society the way it has been at other times in our history. But the one thing that we do have is we have this group of men and women who come from every facet and every corner of America, and they choose to put themselves in harm's way, and they choose to represent something greater than themselves, and that is the red, white, and blue. And these are our service members. And then eventually they become a veteran, and they still care, and they are still trying to keep America to be the greatest nation in the world. And I hope that that's what's reflected in that. I got a breacher too.
Okay, great. Well, everybody out there who gets to watch this, your life will be impacted because of it. I want you to buy the book, get a hold of it, allow these men and their families to do even more goodness. And I want to thank you all for being part of the show today and taking part of your life and putting it on the sidelines while you went out to tell the story of these Super 71 people and finding that the common fiber, the commonness of who they were, and also the distinction and the differences of who they were. With that, I'd like to turn back over to Colonel Bill Butler to close us out. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thanks to Dan, Tom, Beau. You guys knocked it out of the park with the book. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing the story behind the scenes, behind the book, the inspiration for it. This has been a great rally point, and I can't wait until everybody else gets the opportunity to see your great work, the 20-year war. So we've got to give a special thanks to Lane Aviation for sponsoring our 2021 rally points. They're one of our proud corporate members, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to produce rally points and bring them to the masses like we do. If you're interested in becoming a member of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, go to nationalv.org to learn more about supporting our programs and opportunities to help give back to the veteran community. October 2nd, join us as we discuss the new national PBS documentary, The American Veteran. We'll talk to some of the producers of this 4-part miniseries that's coming out this fall. And like the book, it tells the story of the American veteran and what their experience is like and why they serve. The GBH did a fantastic job as well bringing this together. And then we still have some limited tickets for the 20-year book launch, and that'll be our program for next Saturday night. Visit our website for more details. Don't miss a special event to remember those we lost on September 11th and connect with veterans who answered the call to serve during a 20-year time of war. So thank you, and remember to reach out to veterans. Sometimes a phone call, a text, a Facebook message is all that it takes to help make a connection a little bit stronger and strengthen it and keep everybody healthy and safe. And if they're wrestling with demons, it might help them pin that demon. So we'll see you on October 2nd for Rally Point. Thanks, everybody.
Wars aren't fought by countries. They're fought by people. Now, hear their stories in their own words. Honor their service in your own way. At the only museum in America that gives a voice to all our veterans. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum. It's more than a museum. It's the new home of the brave.